Come on, phone. There we go. There we are. All right. Good evening, everybody. Hello, Ishmael. I hope you all had a fantastic Halloween. Give me a thumbs up or some kind of indication if you can hear me all right. Why do I look so dull? Let's go. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. Yes, thumbs up. Fantastic. Okay, great. Great, great, great. Well, for anyone who has not been with us before, welcome. We are doing a book series read. This is the Kishara series by Amelia Atwater Rhodes. This is book 3 of 5. So if you've missed any of the previous readings or if you want to just go back and re-listen to some stuff, I have all of my pre-recorded reading sessions on my YouTube channel. So you can just find my YouTube channel on my bio here on TikTok. So when I was away, I found the cutest earrings at Rehoboth Beach. Are these not the most adorable? I love them so freaking much. And in case anyone can't see it, take a look. It's in a book. A Reading Rainbow sweater. Oh my God, I love it so much. I'm such a nerd. For anyone who's my age or around it, like, you will remember this show. I loved this show. It was great. It was so much fun. So we typically wait till about 8:05 to start reading. For anybody who has a copy of the... there's the hat and mustache. Thank you, my dear. Thank you. For anyone who has the book, we are on chapter 8, and that is page 70. So if you want to read along while I'm reading, just go for it. But yes, I hope you all had a fantastic Halloween weekend. If you guys went out trick-or-treating on Tuesday, I hope you guys got a ton of candy, and I hope everyone was safe. We had a pretty good amount of trick-or-treaters at our house. It was so cold, though. At one point, my phone registered like 42 degrees. I'm like, oh. I had never been so happy for layers in my whole life. So, all right. Let's see here. Okay. Fantastic. So 8:05, we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to read for about an hour because my phone's at like 45%. I don't know where my charge cord is, so we're going to read until my phone dies or until we get to an hour, whichever comes first. All right. Chapter 8. After we left the hall, we did not speak of Hai, and for some reason I felt oddly reluctant to speak of Darian. Are the Rhodes really singing? I asked instead. I had heard my parents and Lily say that they did, but I had always assumed that the phrase was a metaphor for beauty. Only when Lily looked at me with surprise did I realize that I had fallen into the old language without thinking. It simply felt natural to me, like something remembered instead of learned. My own surprise made her laugh. Anmik's voice is the one spoken by your magic, by your blood and your dreams, she explained in the same language. I told you that you would learn it swiftly once you were here. Returning to my original questions, she said, outsiders don't hear anything, but to one who is falcon-born, they sing. They also shift position, and some say that if you close your eyes and walk blindly down them, Oh, the roads. Okay, my bad. They also shift position, and some say that if you close your eyes and walk blindly down them, they will lead you where you should go. Wryly, she added, but I don't recommend it. They have a dry sense of humor and a tendency to dump unsuspecting zealots in the water or lead them into very awkward positions, though there is a story of a young man who found his true love when the roads led him through the back door of her house and into her bedroom. I laughed, my curiosity piqued. Perhaps that was why I had been unable to find the halls that had caught my eye from across the island until I had turned my attention elsewhere. So the roads are alive, in a way? They're imbued with thousands of years of magic from those who live here, soaked with their dreams and thoughts, and thus given a personality of their own. Sometimes, if you sing, they will sing back to you. Or sometimes they will knock you off your feet, depending on whether you can carry a tune. Dangerous paths to walk. Lily stopped, tilting her head as if she had heard something. If you would like to begin your study, Araceli is available now. How? I trailed off because the question seemed stupid in this realm. Lily answered anyway, though not how I had expected her. Her voice brushed across my mind, as it had at Wyvern's court. It is a skill you will learn swiftly, she told me. This way, she added out loud. How long had it been since Araceli and Sifka had left me alone in the city? I had not managed once to think about the consequences of having my magic bound. How was that possible? I had thought us far from the Yenna Marl, but we turned a single corner and we were only a few steps from the courtyard. There was no visible fence or wall around the testing yard, just the abrupt change of the crystalline roads to the white sand. In the center of the triangular yard was a pool of water, its surface like glass. Offset around it were 3 white birch trees, each reaching toward the sky like a pale hand. Araceli was kneeling there, her fingertips trailing through the still water. When she saw us, she stood and approached. As she crossed the shimmering sand, it held no footprints, no sign that anyone had been there only moments before. She nodded at Lily, but spoke to me. Nisias, I apologize for leaving you alone earlier, but my meeting with Sifka could not wait. I am glad to see that you found a capable guide in my absence. Are you ready for your first lesson? She said this as if we had not argued the last time we had spoken, as if we had agreed and the decision had been made. I have some questions first, if you don't mind, I said, though I didn't know what she could say that would make me feel more certain. My choice was either to master my magic or to have it bound. If I had it bound at this point, I would be giving up everything. Perhaps I could learn just enough to be able to do a force change. I recalled the harsh way Araceli had spoken of that magic. I knew that even if I found someone willing to donate his wings, I would never be able to take them. Yes? At Araceli's prompting, I struggled to put my thoughts into coherent order. I do still intend to go back to Wyvern's court, I asserted. She nodded. By studying here, am I tying myself to this land, or will I be able to leave when I choose? I learned from your father that one does not attempt to imprison a prince in his own kingdom, Araceli said, her words obviously chosen with care. Once I believe you have enough control over your magic to survive off this island, I will let you leave. You are lucky in that your royal blood will enable you to gain that kind of control. Most falcons are never able to safely leave the island. I heard the prerequisite in her promise. And if I choose to leave today? I wouldn't need to stop you, she said. I would need to only to send Lillian to pick you up out of the ocean, hopefully before you sank too deep for us to bring you back. I shuddered at the unpleasant image. Can you give me some idea of how long it will be, then, before you will deem it safe for me to leave? Falcon children are tested for their magic for the first time when they are 4 years old. They grow up using magic. They begin to memorize its patterns as naturally as they learn to speak and walk. She paused to consider. The bonds on your parents and the way in which you were raised denied you that early training. I don't doubt that once you gain any control over your power, you will learn its finer points quickly. However, I don't know how difficult that first step might be." The first hints of impatience slipping into her voice, she added, "The sooner you allow me to begin your instruction, the sooner we can find out." She was right. I didn't really have a choice except for whether to keep fighting the inevitable. I had one more question, though, about a term I had heard recently. "What is mind-walking?" Araceli looked startled. She looked at Lily, who said, "I mentioned it to him. He had done it accidentally and run into a little bit of trouble." "I see. Well," Araceli replied, "a mind-walker is someone who can step into another person's thoughts, to speak or to see what they see. It is a required ability for anyone in the Mercy, so naturally your mother was quite talented in that area. It can be a dangerous pastime when used idly, so I recommend avoiding the Schmeckel until you have more control. In the meantime, if we have trouble reaching your magic through traditional lessons, perhaps we can see whether you can recreate the fluke that led you to mind-walk the first time. Assuming you intend to study, of course." She said this in such a way that I knew that she had seen my decision on my face. I nodded. I would study my magic, and then I would return to Wyvern's Court. Perhaps somewhere along the way I could learn something that would help Hai. "Excellent," Araceli said. "Come with me, Nisias. Lillian, would you care to assist us?" "As you wish, my lady." Araceli started to lead us both toward the courtyard. When I hesitated, recalling the warnings I had been given about this yard, she turned. "Most of the city is wrapped in spells to keep you from drowning in your power before you can control it. Unfortunately, those same spells will hamper your ability to learn until you have the conscious control to reach past them. In this courtyard, your magic will be at its strongest, stronger even than it would be off the island." That was exactly what I was afraid of. "You won't be able to come here without me for a while yet," Araceli assured me, "but so long as I am with you, I will be able to protect you." I winced as the light seemed to brighten and the air warmed around me the instant I stepped onto the soft white sand. Araceli took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a moment, and all at once I sensed the magic that she exuded. I fell instinctively into a soldier's ready, right hand grasping left wrist beneath my wings. I waited for her instruction. "Put your hands up, mirrored to mine," she told me. I did as she ordered, moving into what I knew only as a common starting position in a serpient dance. Arms crossed at the wrists, the back of my hands and forearms lightly touched the same on her. Anmiek's symbol is a pure white falcon, diving through a black sky. "Close your eyes and see that," Araceli ordered. I did as she said, and found that the image came easily to my mind's eye. I hoped that I would do as well here as I had elsewhere throughout my life. My parents had feared for my safety in sending me here, and if I did not return in a few days' time, they would begin to worry that I was not going to. "I'm going to blindfold you now," Araceli said. "You are used to using your eyes. I hope to make you learn to see another way." Her arms once again pressed lightly against mine as she tied the blindfold and returned to our original position. "You were raised a warrior, so this exercise is going to be easiest for you," she said. That was the only warning she gave. I felt the flare of her magic as if it had lashed out in an attack, and I knew I had to respond. If she had thrown something at me, my arms would have lifted to catch it. Now my magic did the same, and I had no conscious thought as to how. I knew we never moved physically, but we might as well have fought, danced, run, flown. The magic rippled between our still bodies. The activity stretched until I had no sense of the world Araceli had blinded me to. There was only the power, shifting and swirling in patterns complex and simple at the same time, bright and dark, silent yet singing. Sweat was beading on my brow, and my breath and heartbeat were racing when she finally broke contact. My body swayed with exhaustion, and I stumbled down to one knee. Lily was there immediately, her soft touch and familiar as she... her touch soft and familiar as she offered me a cup of cold, clear water. I reached up to remove the blindfold, thinking the lesson was over. "Not yet, Nisias," Araceli said. "Stand up." I hesitated, feeling every ache in my body all at once. "Stand up," she ordered me again. Standing right then was perhaps the most difficult thing I had ever done, but I forced myself to obey her command. The sun, which had previously warmed the front of my body, was now an unwelcome weight on my back. Araceli's magic struck me harder, and it was Lily's hand on my arm that held me up, even as I felt my magic sluggishly respond. "Release him, Lillian," Araceli said sternly. "Nisias, try to push back at me." Tentatively, I reached out, trying to do consciously what I had done instinctively before. I managed something, I thought. Again. I tried again, and when I fumbled, I felt Araceli's power slap across mine. "Enough," she finally declared, pulling back. I felt a tug as she untied the blindfold. Then I was blinking against the light of Anmique. The day had disappeared while we had been working, but the white towers glowed softly, as if reflecting the moonlight that the clouds had above concealed. It felt as if the ground shifted beneath me. I braced myself against the dizzy spell, closing my eyes and breathing deeply. Araceli nodded to Lily, who came back to my side, steadying me. I flinched when she first touched my arm. My skin was badly sunburned, but it healed instantly at her touch. Again she offered water, and I drank greedily. Anmique's magic is not gentle, and its study is not easy. "We will need to work on your endurance before you can master it," Araceli said. For the moment, all I desired was sleep. "I will see you tomorrow for your next lesson. For now, rest. Lillian, help him get home safely." All right. Stay still. Chapter 9. Lily and I walked toward my rooms, mostly in silence. Part of me felt exhilarated by the lesson and the memories of the shifting power. Another part felt acute frustration. Never in my life, in classes or training or any other form of study, had I worked so hard and accomplished so little. I didn't know what I had learned, if anything. Lily put a hand on my arm, drawing me back from my bleak thoughts as we reached the doorway to my rooms. "Careful," she said. "You've burned a great deal of power today, more than you're used to losing so fast. Sometimes it can lead to melancholy. Are you hungry?" I shook my head. "Strangely, no." "Not strangely," she corrected. "It's normal, especially the first few days. You will learn quickly that your magic can sustain you, but watch out. As soon as your body remembers that it requires food, you'll wake up starving." She pushed open the door and I followed her in, watching the lights emerge from the patterns in the walls as we entered. "Why don't you take down your wings and relax?" she suggested. Her own wings slid against her body and faded away as she spoke, hidden until she was ready to walk about the city again. She stretched, arching her back and twining her fingers together behind her. I did the same, but flinched as I discovered a sea of pulled muscles. They would stiffen that night and ache the next day. "I've never worn my demi-form for this long in my life," I said, carefully rolling my shoulders to try to work out some of the kinks. Lily winced in sympathy and moved behind me. "If you'll lie down, I'll rub your back for you." "That would be wonderful," I said, before I'd had a chance to think the answer through. I had been raised close enough to the serpient that casual touch did not shock me, but I was still very avian at heart, and I had a moment of unease as I lay on the bed, head resting on my hands, with an attractive woman beside me, even more so the first time her palm smoothed down my back. I had never thought of Lily that way before, because neither of us had ever been available. I had always known that she would have to return to Anmique, and I had always been one of Eliza's wyverns. "You are either angry, frightened, or nervous," Lily said. "I don't think I frighten you, and I certainly hope I don't anger you." She left unspoken the last possibility. As she sat on the bed beside me, I started to push myself up. We still were not available. Lily's gentle hands on my shoulders directed me back down. "Relax, Nisias." Her voice betrayed the laughter she was trying to subdue. "Relax." I took a breath, concentrated on doing as she said. Eyes closed, I let myself think of nothing more than the feeling of sore, tense muscles being worked out. Beyond where her hands touched my skin, I felt a faint tickling sensation, a warm buzz that made me so cold I thought I might sink through the mattress. Magic. I recognized it, but the desire to question her drifted away. Much better, she sighed. Her hair swept across my skin as she leaned over my back. I would have tensed again if I could have summoned the energy to do so. She brushed my hair to the side, and her fingers slid through the indigo feathers that grew at my nape. Relaxed now? Suddenly. Not exactly. And even less so when her lips touched my shoulder, silently offering and asking at the same time. I sat up, and this time Lily did not stop me. She just flopped onto the bed, letting out a heavy breath. Nisias, you know I have to go back to Eliza, I said. I pushed myself to my feet, wanting very much to hold Lily, but fighting not to. I can't stay on Unmeek, and I know you need to stay, so we can't. Nisias, I am no avian sweetheart, she said softly. I'm not offering marriage. I'm offering companionship, a heartbeat beside yours. She sighed, her blouse stretching taut across her chest, which did not help me keep control. You've lived so close to the serpent. How can it still be alien to you to sleep with another life beside you? I took a step back, needing to put more distance between us. The problem wasn't that it wasn't completely alien to me. As a child, I had shared a serpent-type nest with Eliza, her cousin Salem, and a few others. I had stopped doing so before I had joined the Wyverns, but I had often missed the warmth and company as I slept. I know I will never be first to you, she said, as if reading my mind. You have sworn your loyalty to Eliza much as I have sworn my loyalty to the White Lady, and nothing will ever precede her in your heart. Duty will forever come first to you. I admire that, because it is the same for me. But loyalty does not have to displace every other kind of love. For right now, neither of us is called upon. For tonight, we can just be. There was no arguing with that. Lily was right. Eliza had my vow. I would give my life for my queen. Until that day, however, that life should be mine to do with as I chose. Before I could speak or make a move, Lily let out a frustrated prayer of Echo, spare the girl who waits for you to make up your mind. Then she kissed me, standing on her toes and leaning against my body. Tentatively, I let myself put an arm around her back, holding her close, and I felt her lips smile against mine before she drew back just enough to speak. If you want me to go, I'll go, she said softly, blue eyes vulnerable. But I would rather stay, and I think you would rather I stayed. She stayed. I stayed. The night was marvelous, and I had one vivid thought before I fell asleep. I could get used to this. And then I was somewhere else entirely, back upon the nightmare landscape that was now familiar to me. High's world. Black sand dunes appeared, frozen forever in place. Far away I could see the high turrets of a castle, but when I took a step toward them, I heard an ominous hiss. The black cobra reared its head. I took a step back, willing myself elsewhere, and soon found that I stood before another figure. Darian was pacing furiously, dressed in suede slacks, vest and boots. Her white gold hair flowed behind her, loose and wild, not quite in time with her movements. Before you ask, she said sharply, yes, you are asleep. And yes, I am really speaking to you. It is difficult to do so here. You should come back to the hall where they keep me. She paused and looked directly at me with eyes that seemed to shift color from green to blue to violet and finally to pale gray. I can't right now, I said, in my own voice alien to me. I'm not quite sure why I should, either. Fool child, she spat. Trusting fool child. A woman bats her eyes at you and you think she's harmless. She shoved my shoulders, sending me stumbling on the ice, which was suddenly slicker than before. Another woman shares stories of how it hurt. Oh, how sad she was when she tortured her son for days and exiled him from his homeland. And you trust them both with your body, your mind, and your magic. Do I have any more reason to trust you? You're supposed to be mad. Her face fell, and she sighed. A cold wind whipped across the ice, making all the hairs on my arms rise as I shivered. Yes, mad, she whispered. Mad for challenging the White Lady, for daring to defy her, for daring to despise the woman your father once called mother, and your lover calls queen. You didn't realize that, did you? When Lillian speaks of her empress, she means Araceli. She is guilty of treason in her heart, if not in action. If I was still sworn to my Lady Empress, I would have brought dear Lily before her long ago. You're not endearing yourself to me, I said coldly. She looked at me as if I had not even spoken. But you, Nicias, you are not the Empress or her heir. You may even have some sort of a heart, despite the poison from your royal blood. That was a rousing endorsement. Why do you hate Araceli so? Why does the cat hate a mouse? She returned. Why, more like, does the mouse hate a cat? She whipped her head to the side as if hearing something else. Not now. Darian? I thought no one remembered my name any more, save Servus, she said softly. All those who mattered have forgotten. It is nice to hear you speak it. Darian's eyes burned violet as she looked at me. A word of advice, Prince, for your travels in our fair city. Everyone on this island is a pawn. You, me, Sifka, Sharza, everyone. It's accepted. It's expected. She sighed and whispered, I borrowed a feather of your soul, son of the sun of she who shines in the darkness, she who glints on ice. I borrowed it and kept it safe. What are you talking about? I demanded. I borrowed it and made it dance for me, and it said... She let out a falcon shriek that made the ice shatter in all directions. I struggled to stay out of the water underneath, but felt myself falling. It said, son of the lady, that you would destroy an empire. I fell into the water and felt it close over my head before I struggled back to the surface to find Darian kneeling on a path of unbroken ice, offering her hand. I could never forgive myself if I let Kel's child drown here, she whispered. I took her hand, and she pulled me up, whispering, Come to me, Nicias. We need to speak. Then I was awake, shuddering from the dream that wasn't a dream. I needed to go to her. I needed to know what she meant. Lily snuggled against me, her eyes heavy-lidded with sleep, looking much bluer at this hour. Something wrong? No, I answered, perhaps too hastily. Go back to sleep. I need to talk to someone. She threw an arm around my waist, snuggling against my side as I tried to stand up. It's the middle of the night. You don't need to talk to anyone right now. I should... Nicias, go back to sleep, she said, laughing and reaching toward me to run a hand up my chest. Or if you don't want to sleep, I'm sure we can find a way to pass the time. But if you wander around on Meek alone at this hour, you're asking the roads, if not Echo herself, for trouble. Whatever it is, it can wait. I sighed, relaxing back into her arms. I didn't even know any more why I had wanted to see Darian. She hated Araceli and Lily, and her own daughter had shown me how dangerous Schmeckle were, despite their apparent stillness. I had no sane reason to go to Darian now, and plenty of reasons to stay with Lily. Chapter 10. The next morning dawned cool and misty, or so I was told. By the time Lily and I woke and greeted the day, most of the fog had burned off and the air was as pleasant as in springtime. I awoke to find slender silver lines along my chest and stomach. When I asked about them, Lily blushed. She brushed a hand across the marks, making my breath catch as the magic oscillated. Harmless, she said. Think of them as love marks, though I can remove them if they worry you. With her eyes that beautiful indigo, her hair still rumpled from sleep, and her hands on my chest, there wasn't much that could worry me. We bathed and dressed, then emerged into Anmique with the languor that always follows deep sleep. Lily unfurled her wings as soon as we stepped into the outside world, reminding me to do the same. It also reminded me of a question. I was told that outsiders and mongrels, I still hated to say that word, Quimac, though I had accepted that the Falcons used it differently, are not allowed to wear their wings in the city. But when I saw Hai among the Schmeckle, she was wearing hers. Lily's expression was grim as she said, "The Empress favored the girl and made an exception to the law. She regretted it when Hai became a poignant example of why mongrels are forbidden in the sky. The city is not kind to those it does not consider its own. More say that they are imbued with thousands of years of magic from those who live here, soaked with their dreams and thoughts, and thus given a personality of their own." Lily had said that to me earlier, when I had asked whether the roads were alive. Now the memory prompted a dark thought. "You said the city's mind comes from those who have lived here," I said. "Wouldn't that mean its actions toward outsiders are inspired by its inhabitants' feelings toward them?" Lily laughed, shaking her head. "Oh, Nicias." Her amused tone seemed to say, "You are being terribly naive, and it's terribly cute." I found that when she looked at me with eyes that were nearly violet in the morning light, I lost my breath as well as my desire to argue. For now I was content to listen to Annick's music and watch the people who passed, all of them wearing the wings of gyrfalcons, peregrines, aplomados, and merlins. One of the buildings we passed was a kitchen, and Lily picked out 2 small freshly baked bread loaves with honey for us to nibble on as we walked. I wasn't particularly hungry, but made myself eat anyway. Maybe food would fortify me, in case that day's lesson with Araceli was as rigorous as the one the day before. It didn't. At least, not enough for me to notice a difference. Around noon, Araceli called for a break, and we sipped mint tea as we discussed things of great and little relevance. The conversation turned to my life in Wyvern's Court. 2 civilizations aren't exactly combined, I explained, but they've come a long way since the wars. Right now, the northern slopes are primarily avian and the southern slopes are primarily serpient. The 2 groups do gather in the market, though, and many of the younger ones share classes. The older generation has bent as far as they are able just by moving there, but their children will go further, I said confidently. It's a slow process, but I have faith in them, and faith in Eliza to lead them. Araceli sighed. It's amazing to the point of frightening, those 2 working together. I nodded. My parents have told me enough stories of war to make me glad I was born in peace. I instantly regretted mentioning my parents. To Lily and Araceli, they were very different individuals from the ones I knew and loved. "I remember your mother a little, from when I was a child," Lily said, tentatively. Araceli sighed and nodded for Lily to continue. "But then, watching the Indigo Choir dance is not something anyone could forget, no matter how young." "The choirs dance?" I asked, confused. "Each choir is a rank, and each rank is defined by how many levels of our magic its members can weave," she explained. "It takes most people centuries to master as many layers as your mother managed in the 16 years before she fled. Kel was among the Empress's favored from the time she was 7. I remember how much I envied her for that as a child. No one ever spoke Kel's name without pride, without respect." Softly, she added, "And then she left it all behind." I wondered if Lily shared Araceli's opinion about my mother's actions. "Do you know why?" "No one's ever content with what they have, I suppose," Lily answered carefully. "It was the same thing Eliza had said to me on my last day in Wyvern's Court." Araceli scoffed. Kel had earned the highest rank a non-royal peregrine can achieve in a fraction of the time such prowess usually takes. That power, along with the Empress's favor and her fame as a dancer, gave her a great deal of arrogance. "But how can you say—" She put up a hand to silence me. "Your mother was always restless, but she had sworn herself as one of the Empress's personal guards. When she began to feel the weight of the duty she had chosen, she fled rather than face it." The picture Araceli painted was so different than any I would have ever associated with my mother. It chafed so much that I couldn't help challenging Araceli. "And my father?" I expected her to silence me again, but instead, Araceli looked away, drew a deep breath, and attempted to answer me. First, Sebastian wanted to learn about other places. I was wary of letting him go, but Sivka argued reasonably on his behalf, so I allowed him to act as a kind of ambassador to the avians. Suddenly he announced that he was in love with a hawk. It was a childhood infatuation, and if I had treated it as such, it would have blown over. But I overreacted, demanded he return home, pressed him too much, and lost him. Both my parents sounded like impulsive children running away from home. I do not care for the girl I used to be, my mother had said to me once, when I asked why she never spoke of her past. My father had said almost exactly the same thing. Sebastian of Annemiek, if he had survived, was not a man I would have wanted to know. I had always assumed that they had hated their past selves due to the land that had shaped them. Was it possible that they had disowned their pasts because they had been as flighty and immature as Araceli described? They had grown since and learned the ideals of duty and loyalty and honor that they had taught to me. Surely they would hate remembering that they had once fled their responsibilities rather than facing them. I was grateful when Araceli asked, "Are you ready to return to training now?" I stood up and stretched, then answered bravely, "Any time. I would rather be buffeted by her magic than by these dark thoughts." Once again we stood in the sun, my eyes blinded by what Araceli called falcon silk, a silvery, shimmering piece of cloth that Lily had summoned effortlessly when Araceli had asked her to, weaving the fabric with nothing but air and magic. Araceli began the same exercise we had performed the day before, this time without her arms against mine to guide me. "Good," she said encouragingly. "Again." We continued, the dance performed without either of us moving. Again. One more time. Nisias Silvermead. I felt myself pull back as Darian's call echoed in my mind. "Nisias of Annemiek, focus!" That command came from Araceli. I felt Darian slip in between Araceli and me, and I was distantly aware that she was dealing with Araceli now, mimicking my faltering attempts at the magic to keep Araceli from sensing that anything was amiss. "Nisias, leave them and come to me tonight," Darian crooned. "If you want power, I can give you power." Her voice faded away, then came back sharper than before. "Nisias, you wear lines of magic on your skin. Are you fool enough to think they are harmless?" For a moment I felt uneasy. What did I really know about falcon magic? "Tonight, Nisias, come to me." Then she was gone, and I staggered under Araceli's magic. The blindfold was pulled away, and I blinked against the unexpected light. "That's enough," Araceli said. "You did well. Within the next few days, perhaps, we can start working on simple drawings." I wasn't paying much attention to her, just nodding mechanically to acknowledge the compliment. What if Darian was right? My mother and father had warned me about Araceli, as Darian was doing now. But Darian was mad. Yet she had given me very real and sane doubts. I think I'm going to... Lily leaned against my side, sighing tiredly, before I could finish my sentence. I needed some time to walk around the city on my own again, but I didn't have the heart to send her away. "If you aren't too tired, you would probably enjoy watching the dancers," Lily suggested. "Indigo Choir performs tonight." Araceli nodded. "I know that the serpents you were raised with still dance, performing what they recall of the ancient steps, but you have never seen a true Sakri performed. It is a sight you should not miss." Chapter 11. As dusk fell, Lily hurriedly led me through the glittering streets and toward the triple arches I had seen from a distance, but had never tried to locate. "There are 3 arches at different heights," she explained as we approached. "Talented air dancers test their wings by trying to fly through the tiny space between where the arches almost intersect. I've known more than one arrogant dancer who has lost pin feathers and pride to that trick. Myself included, I admit. The air dancers we will see tonight are all of the highest rank." She squeezed my hand. Trust me, you will be amazed, especially since you've only seen the dull imitations done by the serpent. These are real." I was about to defend the dancers I had grown up with when we passed through the veil of magic that separated the arches from the rest of the city. The air changed, cooling slightly. The music around us also changed, from the indistinct singing of the roads to the murmur of voices hushed in anticipation. 5 dancers were gathered at the center of the arches, facing each other with their arms crossed at the wrists and their fingertips touching those of the person next to them. They stood like statues, moving only to breathe, which they did in perfect unison. "What do you mean these are real?" I asked. "Serpent dance with their bodies, and that is it," Lily said. "A falcon dancer uses her body to weave magic. When the serpents perform the Darasi cane, you watch and perhaps enjoy the dance. When Indigo Choir performs the Darasi cane, you will feel the rain on your skin. You are the thunder. The magic speaks of love, and you feel love so powerfully you would give everything to keep it. It speaks of fear, and you shake in terror. Wait and see." Lily's description didn't make me eager to experience this, but in that moment the last of the day faded, and the 5 dancers hit the first note of the music together. They were answered by the arches themselves, which began to sing as the 5 moved into the first steps of the dance. The first turn left a trail of silver magic. The dancers were like shadows, silhouettes against the colorful patterns the dance left behind. I closed my eyes for a moment and could still see the dance and the magic, ripples of silver, plum, violet, burgundy, deep sapphire, and rich emerald building and hanging in the air. Suddenly I could feel more than myself, more than the dancers. I could feel the breath of the city, how the magic was wrapped into everything, even the schmeckel. I felt pure love as the city kissed its sleeping kin. I dropped to my knees, and I felt Lily do the same beside me. We were breathing in sync, hearts beating together. I opened my eyes, and nothing changed. There were tears on my face, and I did not brush them away. The performers sang another note and moved into another dance, and now it was not perfect love I felt, but awe. Within a few moments I recognized the steps of the Darasi cane from Serpent's performances, but as Lily had said, serpents simply couldn't do this. As Lily had described, I felt the fury of the storm, and when I closed my eyes I could feel the warm rain. I was a wave in the ocean, thrown to the shore and then drawn back out again and again. I saw lightning, and my breath caught until a roll of thunder reverberated through me. Still trembling from that shock of power, I felt the dance shift once more to a sacritesca, a dance of thanks. Calming, soothing. The magic fluttered across my skin like the wings of 1,000 butterflies, cooling that which the storm had scorched. I was filled with gratitude, and again I felt tears in my eyes. When the dance broke, I found myself on my knees with my hands splayed before me and my head bowed. I was not alone. Some had bowed even lower so that their foreheads pressed against the ground. Each of the 5 dancers turned to face us and sank into a similar bow, returning the honor. A few of the audience stood, including Lily, who stepped forward. "Var nasera Fimitil," she said, praising the dancers and kneeling before one of the women. "You bless us, dancer." "From Var nasera henna," the falcon replied. "Be blessed." By the time Lily returned to my side, I felt almost capable of standing. Offering me a hand, she said, "You do the dancers a great honor by attending the performance. It is not often that any of the royal house are present." "I'm not—" She put a finger to my lips. "It may seem unimportant to you, but you are still the lady's blood. It means something to those who performed for you tonight. It means much to them that you were so moved. Most of the strongest do not allow a dancer's magic to touch them. I believe they miss a great deal." Shyly, she offered, "Perhaps someday I can perform for you. I would do a harja, though you might accuse me of trying to use magic to seduce you." I laughed a little, hugging her close. "Do you need magic, Lily?" With her eyes so fair they were almost gray, she asked softly, "Do I?" The moment hung heavily, words unsaid. She looked away first, turning the conversation back to a neutral topic. "The dancers will stay here for the next several days as they recover. It takes a great deal of energy to spin magic as they have tonight." "I can imagine," I answered. "Was my mother really once able to do that?" "That and more," Lily answered. "She was one of the best. I once saw her dance a sacré haché when I was a child." She shuddered. "A dangerous dance." "Sacré haché?" I asked. Haché meant future, but I did not know what it meant in this context. Lily's gaze lifted, and she scanned the skies as if for inspiration. "Some of the most powerful magics are the sacré chenille, those that deal with time. Most easily the past can be viewed, though never changed, of course. I can spin that form, though it is difficult. Then there are those dances that show the future, that which might come to pass. They're unpredictable and show unlikely events the dancer fears as often as they show nearly certain futures." Softly, she added, "No one foresaw that Kell would run." The mention of my mother's name was jarring. My skin was still tingling from the Indigo Choir's performance. I didn't want to think about home right then. I was enjoying Lily's company, and I had even enjoyed Araceli's. I tried to keep my father's words about Araceli in my mind, but that day she had seemed so different to me from the cold woman my father had portrayed. And then there was the city, its songs and its living roads. I understood now why my parents could not speak of this place without sighing. Once Araceli had taught me my magic and I was able to safely leave, I would go back to Wyvern's Court. I was loyal to Eliza. I had sworn my life to her. But I was beginning to feel reluctant about abandoning all I had learned, abandoning the city and the company of both Araceli and Lily. Eliza would want me to be happy. She of all people knew what it was to be an outsider. She would understand the appeal of a world for my own kind. I winced. When had my own kind stopped meaning the avians and Serpient I had been raised with and started meaning this civilization I was related to by seemingly little more than blood? Again, Lily drew me from my dark thoughts, hugging me as she kissed my cheek. "I'm sorry. I did not mean to upset you, especially after a day as long as the one we've just shared." We returned to my rooms together. This time there was no debate. Already it felt right to have Lily beside me as I slipped gracefully into sleep, and onto the familiar black ice, lit only by the silver moon. "The night on ice," came Darian's voice. I turned, but could not find her. That is how Echo is described, just as unmeek is the white falcon, diving through the midnight sky. I heard a screech and looked up to see the image she had described, the falcon diving until it slammed into and through the ice, sending fractures out in a million directions, a million fingers of gray in the blackness. Schmeckel. I felt her breath on my neck, and I turned to find her standing close, dressed in a traditional falcon's outfit like one Lily had worn earlier. Her image blurred before my eyes, and then it was Lily standing there. But when she spoke, the voice was still Darian's. "Do you like this form better? Do you trust it more?" I stepped back, unsure of how to deal with her icy rage. "Do you notice the way her eyes change color?" Darian asked. "The magic stains a falcon's body. The magic is what puts the blue into your hair. What do you think makes her eyes violet? And why do you think you turn from your questions the instant she wishes you to?" "I've known Lily for years," I replied. Why was I arguing with Darian? Why did I feel the need to justify myself to a specter I had never even met in the flesh? 2 years, Darian said. 2 years are nothing in this world, especially when the prize is the trust of a royal falcon. Look at me, Nasias. She commanded when I tried to will myself out of this dreamland. Look at me and listen to my words with all the intelligence and reason I would expect from Kell's child. What do you know about my parents? I demanded. Enough to know that neither of them would have fled this island if there was nothing here to flee, she retorted. Darian turned, as if startled by something. You don't speak of a mind walker without her knowing, especially when you lie so close to her. But what choice did I have? Nisias, Nisias, if you want to learn your magic, I could teach you everything, she whispered. I could feel the effort it was taking her just to maintain contact with me. I could teach you in one night what it may take you 100 years to learn from Araceli. Come to me. The ice shook at her command, and I was lost again, surrounded by black mountains. The serpent who had haunted me was before me again. But as Darian's voice echoed, it recoiled. Come to me. I pushed past the cobra, following the only path I could see as the ice began to shatter around me. Come to me. When I woke, it was because Lily was shaking me. Who calls to you? She asked. I blinked in disoriented surprise. I grasped the barest tendrils of the magic, she explained. It is a powerful call. Who is it from? I answered, one of the Schmeckle. Darian, she is called. Lily's eyes widened, and she snuggled closer to me. I am glad I have never heard that one sing, not since Ekel took her. Be careful, Nisias, and take her words with a grain of salt. Darian hates the royal house. She was one of the Empress's mercy until she turned on her liege. I was there the day Darian attempted to assassinate Araceli. Lily twisted, and I noticed for the first time the faint scar under her right shoulder. Her blade ripped through my back, into my heart. My brother saved my life. Mur fell to Ekel that day, but at least he took that bloodless creature with him. I shivered, thinking of how close I had come to trusting Darian. That's why Darian is bound now, she explained. Even if she recovers from Ekel, she won't be able to leave those halls. Why wasn't she executed? There had been more to this tale, but I didn't know what. The Empress is merciful, and she has always been very fond of Darian, despite all the traitor has done, Lily said bitterly. Be careful. Until you learn to protect yourself, I fear that even bound Darian could wrap you in a persuasion magic so strong you wouldn't hesitate to hold a knife to your own throat. She tucked her head into my chest, and I felt a wash of guilt. Her brother's fall was what had driven her to Wyvern's court. Now that she had returned to Anmeek, what right did I have to make her face her demon again? If you will let me, she said, I can share with you dreams more pleasant than those of the black ice. I nodded. As we drifted back to sleep, I thought I heard one last faint whisper from Darian. I am not the only one on this island capable of such magics, Nisias, she warned. Even my enemy has told you that I am bound and helpless. Now, come to me. And we will call it a close for this evening. That puts us at chapter 12 for next week. And also my phone is dangerously close to dying. All right. Well, for those of you that are here watching and listening, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I missed you guys last week, even though I did do a Halloween read. So if you missed that one, again, go visit my YouTube channel and you'll see my Halloween special, my very first one. I think it turned out all right. I was pretty pleased with it. So with that being said, I hope you guys have a fantastic night. Stay hydrated, please. And stay safe through the rest of the week. And I will see you guys Monday at 8 o'clock. Bye. Phone? There we go.